Oh, yeah. What they do is they give you a variety of colors instead of a variety of tints, different. But the thing is, see, when you run back, soft colors, how they do it. They've got a long number for years. It really shapes you into working with clear limitations. A lot of
to get it into this country, they charge so much money.
Last year, it's that accent. Yeah, that's what it's subject to. I like that. I have
That's why there is. You get it from this fellow here. The Franken bourgeois. Comes in a little plastic coffin. You put your pet mouse in there.
members of the family in it.
Isn't it amazing how in Europe they package everything in that plastic because paper is so expensive over there?
Here we go.
Where's the lights?
Get the lights. The lights. And Romney type 16.
Yeah.
And you know, the price on well, I will and he wasn't yeah. Thanks. I use mixed flavors. I use it for two things.
I'm setting up nice and simple. That background's all black. Just white on the shirt. What I'd like to talk about today is something that we fool around with over at Bell and Chisel. The idea of, there she is, she knows what I'm talking about. The reason I set it up so simply is with a simple subject it's easy to demonstrate what I want to get across, and that is the idea of getting into careful drawing as quickly as possible by starting with all the simple large areas. That's why I set it up with that white shirt, kind of a flat lighting on its face. There's no from where I'm standing, there's no complicated half tones. The head is not half in shadow or anything like that. It's pretty much one flat flesh color with highlights on it and a little bit of modeling. The hair, when I squint down, kind of blends right into the background. The value in the eyes, the eyebrows, the mustache, and so on, that all participates with the value in the background. These are all things I kind of get set in my mind even before I begin to paint. Things that I shoot for when I'm setting up the subject. Something that you can't do when you're in class here because you're not setting it up. But before you start painting, you can just look at your subject and do a little analysis like that. Don't just start. Take a few minutes and look at it and say, where are the highlights? What's the lightest light? Where are the darkest darks? What kind of problems are you going to anticipate? In here, we don't have some of the problems that we would have in situations like talent chisel, where there are fairly strong lights on both sides of the model. The fluorescent lights are not recessed in the ceiling like this, so very often if somebody's painting over here, the shadow would be rather strong right on the edge where the light turns over and becomes shadow, and then suddenly it'll start becoming blue again because the fluorescent light's going to pick up on that. Or there'll be a cast shadow from his nose, and by the time that cast shadow reaches its edge, the shadow is almost the value of the light. That's a different temperature. But we don't have any of those problems here. So, gotta tone the canvas first. You could go right into the painting without toning the canvas, but some of that white is bound to show through someplace. And it's very disturbing. Let's just start seeing that black. This is the fun part. I feel like an action painter. Okay, now we're ready to paint. set it up so simply. That flesh color represents the area of the head, and to me it's like a block of stone. It's ready to be carved almost. It's so simple. So all I have to do at this point to get the correct drawing is to concentrate on the dark areas and on him. His features blend in with the shadows, what few shadows there are from this standpoint. They all participate in the same value in the background. It's almost like a two-value study when I look at it here. Even, well, the shirt represents a much lighter value. So I would say there's three values to worry about up there. There's the background, the eyebrows, the eyes, the shadow under the nose, the mustache, and even the shadow under his lip, shadow under his chin, and the little shadows in the ears, all are the same value at this stage as far as I'm concerned. They're all things that I'm going to draw without worrying about the value. I'm going to treat them as one value, so that all I have to do is concentrate on what shape they are, okay? And I don't have to worry about what color they are, because the color is simple too. They're almost all the same color. And hopefully if I do that right, and get all those shapes in correctly, then I can start adding color to it. And all this I'm not even going to worry about, because this is here just for placement. It's not here. I'm not committed to this at all. This doesn't represent the line of this shirt. It could be anywhere in here, but that's going to be determined by what I put on here. This is just compositional, I guess you call it. I call it placement. It's where he is on the canvas. Once I put his eyes and eyebrows in, then I am committed to that, and everything will be related to that. I'm also going to hold back on the value a little bit when I lay in the eyes and so on, saving real dark accents for the very end, or not necessarily the end, but at least to the time when I know exactly where I want them to go. This to me is the most important stage of painting, right here in the next 5 minutes or so, because any mistakes here will just compound themselves through the entire course of the painting. So I just mix up a little bit of terra rosa and yellow ochre and cobalt blue. Give me a color which is sort of an average for all the darks that appear in the face. At this point, too, edges are important. So you can do a drawing and an edge study at the same time without worrying about color or value. The values, it's all the same for all the darks in this pigment. It gets a little more complicated in North Daylight where everything is so subtle, and you really have to look at it a whole lot more carefully in order to decide what belongs in light and what belongs in the dark. Anybody who has painted in North Daylight knows those problems. Also in North Daylight, there are no cast shadows in the sense that we have them here, that you can't outline the shadows. They're just sort of darks. And one of the difficulties is trying to identify the shapes of some of those darks, because they just trail off into nothing sometimes. That's where half closing your eyes and squinting down at the subject is so important in North daylight, because it's the only way to see the characteristic shape of things that are very vague, that have very soft edges. Here it's easy to see. This thing makes razor sharp edges. One way I know that I'm on the right track as far as drawing is concerned is that when I put something down like this, even though it's just a smudge, the layman would say it's just a smudge of paint. To me, his eyes right away, it's his eyebrows, the syndrome is what I'm seeing from this vantage point. This, by the way, is strictly my way of doing it, okay? I'm comfortable once I've got the eyes and nose complex done. From there, I feel right about going on to the rest of the painting. There's no way I could indicate them out until I've got these three elements in absolutely correct relationship to one another. Other people start in different ways, but they're following the same procedure. I watched Bettina Steinke. You all know Bettina Steinke? I saw her paint Chen Shi last September in Denver. It was Bettina and who's that portrait painter from New York? Ray Kinsler. And Leonard Goodacre was doing a sculpture at the same time. And Chen Shi was the model. Well, Bettina started with the top of the forehead with the hairline. And she worked downward, just like putting a shade down. And Ray Kinsler started with a big, kind of loose drawing with the brush, and then he smudged in a lot of color, and then he quickly did the eyes and the nose and the mouth and the ear, and he kind of brought it all together at one time. And Glenna was still throwing the clay around. But each of them, as I watched them work, they were so careful in those early stages. What they did was precise. They were so slow. It was almost painstaking to watch them. I watched Bettina work, and I thought, how the hell did she spend so much time on the hairline? Just looking at it, she was measuring down and measuring down. She worked on it, and then all of a sudden she got that right, and then she just went bang, 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 and everything else fell into place. Because she was relating everything to what she was doing up here. Those were the points in which she was measuring everything that would happen. And I tend to do the same thing, except I start right here. Looks like I'm getting a little on your last side. That's all right. See the difference. When I originally laid this in, I put the collar way down here, so there's that much of a discrepancy. What I originally thought. And the error occurs because when I started to put this in, I made everything here slightly smaller than life size. Okay? And so having decided I'm committed to that, everything else became a little bit under life size, and by the time I got down here, there's that much difference between where the collar's going to be. That's partly from working quickly for demonstration purposes. That can be worked out if you start a thing like this and you put a little attention into how you want to compose the thing and you decide how big you want the large elements. It's just a matter of spending a little bit more time when you get into the drawing part of it so that you know that it is life size, so that it's going to come out pretty close to what you intended. So that's So we have, at this point, like a 3-value study. One, this 2 values, and then 3 values, all the cards, same value. So we can, at this point, start dividing those areas into 2 values for this area and 2 values for the darks and 2 values for the light. So we'll end up with 6 values. Sargent usually painted with about 5 values. Sometimes you go into 6 values, but that simplicity of values, especially in the early stages, is the thing that makes it really solid. It prevents it from a lot of over-modeling and getting involved in all the picky little things. If I were to spend all my time looking at just the light area on his face or the light area on his shirt, and I didn't squint down at it, I could see 100 different values in here. That was the only thing I was looking at. The longer I look at it, the more I can see it. All these little darks and all these little values and color changes. But if I squint down at it, I could see maybe 2 simple values with 1 or 2 accents in there. There would be in the shirt here, the 1 value for here, plus you pick up here, wherever the light hits it at a direct angle, you get the light value, and there's a little half tone for all of the other areas back in here, and as the shirt slides away that way, and it casts shadow into there. Then there's a third thing, which I don't really count as a value, I call them accents, because they're not major things, and those would be these little things in here. See those? Just those 2 major values and a little accent, that makes it just as solid as can be. Let's take a break. Okay, ready?
What do you do in the initial? And then when you put the color
By the way, I'm going to probably spend another hour on this, and then I don't know if Nancy mentioned to you, does anybody have any paintings they want to have corrected? Bring anything? Yeah, we try to overlay thing. Does anybody else have any paintings here? No? I thought you said everybody.
Dan? Dave's not here.
Well, I didn't know.
That's right,
Yeah.
he doesn't make it.
You bring something.
Okay.
Sure. You must have something. No?
Yeah,
I've got one.
Sure.
Yeah.
I won't have to work so hard. See how easy it is to start adding color. The paint's nice and wet, and you can push it around any place you want.
The areas that you're choosing to paint, are you choosing the most obvious areas, or?
Oh, yeah, always. Yeah. Most, the things that if I drop dead in the next 5 minutes, I want it to live on forever. So, rather than start down here. If I don't get a chance to finish it, or if the time is a problem, I want to be sure that when I stop, I've got the importance of the time. Now, if I were doing this and I had, if I were doing it for myself and I had all the time in the world, so let's say I had all day, probably I would spend a great deal more time on this first stage. Not the one I'm doing now, but this stage here. probably would have put an hour and a half getting that just so. Because, as you can see, from this point, it starts painting itself. You know, it just feels right. I don't even have to think about where it puts things because they just seem to belong in these areas. I don't have to measure that carefully because all my measurement has been done here. And if the strokes that I put down is really nice and free, I don't have to worry about whether it's correct or not. I can leave it there. That's why Lyon and Sargent look so nice and fresh because he's so accurate in the first stages. So when he started laying all that stuff in, he didn't have to fool around and correct it. It has no. I was trying to look at a Sargent or Celia Bow or Soraya. It's hard to look at it and see where he went over it and over it and over it and corrected it, isn't it? It's just it's like he did it just moving on like that. And that wasn't just raw talent. I mean, when I was a student, I used to think of this guy picked up a brush and he went like this and he put the paint on one side, he did this with the other side, he got the brush just right, and then he laid it on and he went like this. And it all came off the brush in the right place. I really thought they did it that way. But they didn't. They went through this business first. They got a good basic value painting on there with almost the right color with what I think Sargent used to call it a possible head, possible color, average flesh tone color. And then he went in and did the stuff on top of that. And because that color was almost right, that is to say, it wasn't incorrect, but it didn't represent all the colors that are up there. It was kind of an amalgam of all the colors up there. Some parts of his face are pink, some of them are grayer, some of them are a little more yellow across the forehead. The color that he arrived at is a combination of all of those colors, kind of like makeup. And then he was able to tint the areas that deviated from that. I didn't worry about that when in the very first stages, in the first hour or so of painting. In the first hour, the first lay-in of painting is there. Purpose is to put the painting down. You put the paint down so that you know where things are going to go later on. There's no point in going through all this nice color if it's not in the right place. And by doing this stuff first, it tells me now where to put it, so that when I do put it down, I know it's where it belongs. There's a whole other school that says go for the big color areas and get your color correct and all that, and they do very successful work. It's a completely different approach. Usually, that other approach, like I'm talking about Grand X, any other method, or most other methods, involve a lot of correcting all the way down the line. Because it is of necessity because of the technique. It is vague to begin with. So that whatever is put down at first, in other ways of doing it, all those initial strokes usually have to be modified in one way or another. And usually they have to be modified in terms of the drawing and placement.
So you're saying it's easier to modify color slightly than drawing?
What's that?
It's easier to modify the color.
Oh, yes.
Than it is to draw.
Yeah. I'm not saying that you shouldn't pay attention to color. first thing would be to put down a color that's totally wrong, but the right value. I mean, I could put this in so that it's so gray and cool or so brown and awful, even though it's the right value. I could do it that way, but it would be so disturbing that I would be correcting myself anyways. I'd be painting my purpose. The idea is to get a good approximate color. And as I said, this is not the only way to do it. It just happens to be one of the surefire ways of getting something very fast. If you look at any of the Robert Henri's, you almost recognize that that his paintings are this method in about another half an hour. They really are. Well, by the time I get the right value in for the hair and the mustache and get that ear in, it will be the same stage at which Robert Henri stopped. Okay? Because I'm thinking particularly of a lot of the things that he did of those Irish kids, the Irish people went over there and did a lot of, like himself, herself, the old people, all these neat kids he did in the New York streets. Those are very fast studies that we did it just a matter of, I don't know, it couldn't have been more than 2-3 hours. You can't get kids to sit longer than that. And you can almost go over there. When we were students, we'd go over there and there would be a couple of Henri's and we would count the brush strokes in the painting. And you could do it too. Some paintings that I've seen here and paintings that I've done when I was a student and paintings I still do, I can count my brush strokes into the thousands. Literally. Good thing you all don't have to paint Steve all the time, so you never learn how to paint a mouse. Well, I guess that's about it. To carry it any further than this would be an entirely different meeting. Use some professionals. I could carry it farther and bring out some of this, but let's get on to some of those. Yeah. Anyway, that's the idea. So, we won't need any more. Thank you very much. Pleasure painting you Are all of you in, how many of you are in Ted's class? And the rest of you are in what, Alphamans? Or Parks? Is that Parks painting class or what?
No.
Life drawing.
Life drawing. But
Yeah, these are them.
did I make my point here about how being simple about everything? Because you can look at this point, even with as many strokes as are here now, and just take a forehead, for example. There's one highlight, that's one. There's the color for the average color, that's two. There's a little color change there. There's three values, three elements created the entire forehead. And take the nose, same thing. There's a dark underneath the nose. And there's these two colors, same value there. And a little change there, maybe 4 or 5 elements painting the whole nose. As you go throughout the whole thing, so you got a general tone, some color changes, slight highlight there. That takes care of the whole side of the cheek. The ear, you saw how the ear was painted. This is bang bang. I sound like I'm bragging, but I'm trying to say how simple it was, okay? I mean, how uncomplicated. If I was a brilliant person, I'd be complicated about this. But I have to simplify things so that I can understand them, which is what painting is, simplifying things so that people can understand them. What we're doing is we're creating an illusion. We're not telling them, we're not describing people's eyes, we're not describing people's ears, we're telling them what the light created. Because when this guy turns his head, or if we turn the light, his features remain the same anatomically. The guy doesn't change, but all the shades change, all the colors change. So what we're copying here naturally starts with the shape that he is, but the shape, the real shape, okay, the nose sticks out and all that. What we're copying is the effect of light on him, the effect of light, shadow, and local color. And those things change with the light change, the change when he moves his head. So what is on this canvas is not him, it's an illusion of what he looks like under that light. Is that clear? Did I say that right? Okay. If we look at it in simple terms, simple values, highlights, shapes of darks, which could be, those darks could be the shadow, it could be the color of his mustache, it could be the background, it could be all those things fused into one, as they are right in here. Take this dark, for example. This thing here, okay? That dark, you'd say, well, it's a big shape that surrounds the head, but it's also a shape that continues. That shape continues in here, it continues up in here, it continues up in here, up in there, and there. So if you were cutting it out, you'd have a real funny looking shape that goes like that, and stuff like that, like that. It's all the same value. And that one value represents the eyes, the nose, the mustache, the mouth, and the background. Okay? That's what you have to see. That abstract shape. But if you get it correct, and you get the edges correct, and you get the value right, it's going to look like him. And you don't have to worry about noses and mouths and lips and hair and all that stuff. No, it's great. Very inspired. Maybe you can see it without glare now. I thought maybe you'd like to see this. This is something that I do in the studio. It's not an original idea. The idea is to look at the possibilities within a painting or make corrections on a painting using an overlay. You can use acetate. It comes in huge sheets, or you can use plain old saran wrap, which I like to use, except I wish they'd make it in bigger sheets. I probably get it all wrapped around myself. It's hard enough to handle as it is. Saran wrap clings real closely to canvas, and almost feels like you're painting on the canvas. And the idea is that you can paint on this and make all the changes and fool around with it, be as creative as you want, and not have to worry about hurting your painting. And then when you get the thing to your heart's delight, then you can make those changes on the canvas itself. And it's something I do fairly often, especially if I'm doing a still life, or like when I did Michelle the last time I demonstrated here. It didn't quite look like there was something wrong with the whole job. And so when I got it back to the studio and it had dried enough, I put some of this on and worked on it for about an hour until it looked like her. And I carefully removed this to see what changes I had made, and it was just astonishing. They were so slight. It was just a couple of little lines about that long, and an eighth of an inch, and just a little bit on the mouth. It was just like 4 or 5 strokes. Yeah, you can take this thing off and stick it up on the wall and see exactly where your changes are, and you put them right here. You can even match the color, and you've done all that work without having to harm your painting, you know, without making it even worse. So, now, can you see this? Is it glaring or anything? Right. Because I don't know, I'm way up here. I just thought it'd be interesting to take some of your paintings. I should have told all of you to bring in anything you want, and stick it up here and see what the possibilities might be for making it into something, just from my standpoint. This is not absolute. It may not be what you have in mind, and it doesn't involve major changes. It just means taking what's already there and maybe pushing it a little bit, so that we kind of explore the possibilities of a little better color, maybe a little more dramatic interest, and not really changing its composition, but just taking it as what's already there and saying, what can we do to make it a little more close to our heart's desire. Well, the first thing that I notice about this is that the color, looking at it from a color standpoint, is that we could make a lot more use of real clean color. Okay, most of the color here is grayed down. So I've done a lot of city stuff, and although I don't have this in front of me, I kind of guess what might have been out there. For example, the street lights, the traffic lights, and so on. there's an opportunity right there for some really blatant color. What my neighbors used to call meretricious eye catchers. I thought that was a compliment when I first heard it. Meretricious, if you don't, means the worst possible taste. Corniest taste, you know, like country western music. Somebody here likes country western music. But if it's there, it's there, okay? If this kind of meretricious color, or egregious, there's another one. If it's realistic, then, then the street outside is that, it's garish. Let's face it, neon signs are neon signs, Las Vegas is Las Vegas, and red traffic lights are red traffic lights. That's why they're there, so that you can see them. We don't want red in both directions. So. Kind of a crash scene. We'll put that over here. So this is not authentic. Where was this down in Michigan? Is that water tower place?
Where's Stevie Gibbs?
See, it's good enough so you can tell where it is, right? Oh, maybe, no, I put the red down on the bottom. Good. That's not right. You did it. Those who drive cars, red is up there. Okay.
Play it safe and the other.
Yeah, we'll put the yellow one anyway. All I'm saying is that there's an opportunity for cleaner color. Okay? When you're putting in things that are light sources, you've got to go, they really got to be the cleanest color in the whole painting. My guess is that there might have been lights. Well, I don't want to put something in there that's not there, so let me concentrate on what is there. And people who are out on the street are a great opportunity for all kinds of color. Even use a lizard prints and just jazz it up. Because this stuff is really out there if you look for it. City scenes especially are a wonderful opportunity for colors. Thinking of the Monet street scenes and stuff that Nelly and the rest of the boys did. Paris, they know it's nothing more than one a Bastille Day when everybody put the flags out, those paintings. They're looking for those opportunities all the time. Just those few spots now, it just lights it up like a Christmas tree. See? One of the reasons it lights it up so much is that there's so much gray color around there that optically psychological thing that a spot of pure color in mud puddle looks even more pure, it stands out even more. The contrast is what makes it so nice. But you can have pure color with other pure colors around it, that the other colors form a complementary foil to it. That is to say, if you wanted to, for your punch in a picture like this, have these hot little colors as the main accent, then you couldn't have a lot of other hot color in the picture. It would have to be clean color, but on the cool side, maybe towards the blues and greens, which it already is. But it could have been a little cleaner in color. Like on the trees, you can maintain clean color with this stuff without distracting from this stuff by knocking it down and down and making it a nicer color. There are other ways that we can, well, let me get some more colors on there. There's probably people walking around with light colored things on. So you probably see things like that along the sidewalk. This is the way the practice laid it down there, just 1 or 2 strokes. Yeah, there's some. There's also darks there, people on dark. Probably these people in the foreground would be an opportunity for some good darks too. Increase the contrast. And this stuff is really out there. Was this stuff from life, or was it, you need to worry about when you're working out there from life and something like that, you have to draw out and make sure that it looks like human being, as long as it's the correct spot of color. Okay, so that's your mind, do that kind of drawing on the spot. It's really starting to get alive now. There's probably more contrast here. You can really light up those lights by painting this stuff as dark as it probably really was. I'm exaggerating here, but just to make the point about what additional punch is available. These windows probably had lights in them. There might have been color in each window. It's kind of a syndrome of city painting, especially in Michigan Avenue area or State Street, is that when you look down there at street level, you see a blaze of color, and then it's kind of gray from there on. The colors diminish as they go up. There are fewer and fewer colorful things. You've got neon lights, you've got street lights, you've got cars, you've got windows, you've got all kinds of signs sticking out. There's just a blaze of color out there. And kind of all disappears as the up to the second floor, there's less and less, and on the third floor, there's less and less. Of course, when it's raining, then you've got a blaze of color on the street, you have all that stuff reflected. That became a real cliche. Paris, rainy Paris streets. A great thing for color is a street scene like this, early in the evening with snow on the ground. And that is just pure joy. Because you're not, the overall feeling of the painting is light. You've got the snow. It's not real white because it's late in the afternoon, but it's dark enough to where all the lights show up. It's soft and subtle, and major areas all have this unifying color created by the snow. It's kind of a middle tone, blue, purple. So that's what I'm doing. Who else brought some? Wow, look at it in the light. The whole painting. Wow. It's so dramatic if you take that off and look at it and then put that back on. It's just astonishing. Yeah, Mike brought this to me. Want to try this?
Yeah, that's good.
See something a little more straight. See what we can do with this one.
And you sound subject too.
Huh?
And you sound subject too.
Yeah, I didn't want to tell him that. I painted the same guy. I thought they think I'll do it. Must be great to have spray, you can spray it like that, and peel it off when you're. This was a friend of mine proposed for us without the chisel block, Mike Nielsen painted. This is such a good painting. It's hard to do something, but you know, it'd be fun to put a Rembrandt up there and see how we can.
See if we can get an original.
What would we do with the Rembrandt? Probably repaint the hands. We have trouble with the hands. Well, it's sacrilegious thing to say.
They'll be looking at the hands on those Rembrandt.
Well, you can tell the guy really struggles. He was so preoccupied with the head that when he got away from the head, you could see that he was handling himself behind. This one has got a pretty good color. On the whole, it's pretty successful. The main things that will need to be changed on this would be, some interesting things could be done, like with his collar, for example. You could make that, jazz that up. Just a nice, simple thing like that. Makes it a little more painterly, if you would, nice plan. There might have been, be careful I don't go off. There might have been something over there. As soon as I put in that light value, which is the light that you probably could have gone, see how dark it makes all these values, that it shows that there were opportunities for a lighter, an overall lighter value in the lights, or at least some lights that we're not taking advantage of. So there probably, if I remember him correctly, the light was fairly strong on this side of the face, and I would guess that there were highlights that would have been picked up in here. That's a little too strong. Let's see, no, it would have been right on the above the brow. Probably right about there. Yeah, that was and see, these are changes that you can fool around, and if they don't look right, you can take them off. You can soften them, change the value. Add color there. I remember some little changes on the eye socket there. I remember the statement is eye socket. And it probably would have been a stronger light on that side of the mill. Probably that eye socket went off a little bit more. These mistakes, see how the mouth should have come out a little bit farther too on that side. Mistakes like this are real easy to see if you look at it in the mirror. They can occur if you stand next to your painting and you go like this for a couple of hours, and before you know it, things are kind of going off in one direction. Your emphasis would tend to be on the light side of the face, and be a little more uncertain about that side, and they show up just like that. What I'm doing here, Mike, is just strengthening what's already there a little bit. I'm scratching, drawing slightly, giving a little stronger value. See? I'll exaggerate it for more lip a little bit. That's all right. Probably there would be an opportunity for some dry brush work to soften the hair in there, so it's not so dry. There. That's how you use this stuff. You can, and if that doesn't look right, take it off, put another piece on, and start all over again. If you want it. If it's had to be a self-portrait and you want to see what you look like with a mustache, you can do that. There's all kinds of fun. There's a lot of fun. Let's take a break, okay? If anybody has any paintings you want to do this, bring them in.